Welcome to another Learn Scratch tutorial, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can use Scratch to make a quiz game. So let's give you a demonstration. We start the game, it displays a start screen. When we click start, it pops through and it asks 3 questions. So what is the capital of UK? London, correct. Each time it displays whether it's correct or incorrect. There we go. Wrong, and let's say Japan. There we go, wrong. Good stuff. And at the end of the game, it displays a score. My quiz has only got 3 questions, but your quiz can have as much as you like, as many as you like. So let's get started. First of all, we head over to Scratch and we click Create. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the start screen, change the backdrop so it says Scratch quiz game, and it displays a little button at the bottom. So the first thing, let's hide Scratch because we don't need him for the moment. Click on the stage, and on the backdrop, let's call this start screen. And we'll create some text. Let's change that to Scratch, to dark blue. Now what we're also going to do is we're going to make sure we use vector mode. At the moment it's on bitmap, but we don't want to use that. We want to use vector mode, so we click vector, change to vector. The reason being, if you use bitmap mode, it all comes out all blocky like above there, whereas if you use vector mode, it comes out all smooth, just like below. And Scratch quiz game. There we go. So there's our title. Obviously, you're probably going to want to do a slightly fancier title, do more colours, whatever you want to do. But that'll do for mine for the moment. So Scratch quiz game, good stuff. And what we'll say is when start clicked, so at the start of the game, we'll switch the backdrop to the start screen. Good. Now what we need to do is let's paint a new sprite. Again, let's go to vector mode. This time we'll use the ellipse tool and just draw an ellipse there. So there's our ellipse drawn. What we'll do now is we'll click on the reshape tool, and this allows us to reshape this ellipse, this little circle shape, and we can change it into something that looks a bit more like a button. So there we go, something like that. That looks quite good, that. Brilliant. Make that a little bit smaller. And we'll put start. There's our start button. And let's colour in the background. We could do it a whole green colour if you want to do it like that, or you can use the gradient tool here. However you want to do it, really. I'm going to do a gradient. There we go. So there's my Scratch quiz game. There's my start button. Now what do we want to say? Okay, at the start of the game, we want to show the button. Good. And when it's clicked, when this sprite is clicked, we need to hide that sprite and we need to broadcast start game. Start the quiz. Start the quiz. There we go. Now broadcast there, what it means is when that start the quiz is broadcast, any other sprite or the background can listen into that broadcast, and you can use a little receiver so that when it's clicked you can do stuff with all the other sprites. So for instance here, when we click start, we're going to have to change the backdrop to a different backdrop with one of the questions. So let's make one of the questions now. Let's click on paint a new backdrop. Let's call this 1. And let's add our first question. What is the capital of France? A, London, B, Washington, C, Paris. There we go. So there's our first question. There's question number 1. Oops. I've made a mistake here. Let's just delete that. What we need to do here is we need to use vector mode, not bitmap, as I said before. Click to vector mode. Let's get rid of all this. Oops. Let's get rid of all that bitmap stuff there. And get rid of that as well. Let's do that again. Make sure you work in vector mode. Don't do a bitmap like I just did. Let's try again. What is the capital of France? A, London, B, Washington, C, Paris. I've done a dot there, haven't I? No, seems okay. There we go. Yeah, there we are. Some little dots there. Let's get rid of those little dots. Good. Why is that not moving? It's having a bad day. There we go. Don't know what was happening there. It's all going a bit funny then. So, what is the capital of France? Those are 3 possible answers. So, this is question number 1, or at least it's the first question, question number 1 in the bucket of questions. What we're going to do is we're going to have a whole list of questions, and we're going to be able to pick questions randomly rather than doing the same questions over and in the same order each time. We're going to have to do a random list so you can have a whole list of different questions, and this one is question 1. So we've got the question, which is the backdrop, and we've got the 3 options. The only thing we're missing now is we need to have a list that contains which is the correct answer. Well, the correct answer here is C for Paris. So what we need to do here is we need to create a list, and let's call this correct answers. There we go, correct answers, good stuff. And what we do here is we say, okay, at the start of the game, delete all of correct answers, and now we add what we want. So question number 1 is C. There we go, good. So there's question number 1, and the correct answer is C. Let's duplicate this, and we'll do a few more geography questions. What is the capital of England? A, London, B, Birmingham, C, Istanbul. There we go. So, what is the capital of England? London, Birmingham, Istanbul. So now what we do is we make sure that's question number 2, which it is. Let's put itself on question number 2 there. And we add the correct answer, which is A. A. There we go. Now this is a really important thing, is that here, this list here that we're adding to, that's got to be question 1, that's got to be question 2. If you don't do it in that order, then all the questions are going to be, it's all going to go wrong. Good. Now let's add one more question. So we've got 1, 2, duplicates, and I'll add one more. What is the capital of Ireland? A, Beijing. Not sure that's how you spell it. We use a different one. Tokyo, B, Istanbul, C, Dublin. You might want to do harder questions than me, than I'm doing at the moment. I'm just doing some demonstration ones, and you can do for different themes as well. And that's on number 3, which is good. And now we go back to our scripts and let's add C again. Good. So that's okay. So if I start now, we've got a correct answer list, C, A, C, which is great. We don't need to look at that for the moment, so we'll just hide that list. So we created a list of correct answers, we created a list of questions. So now what we need to do is we need to get our program to start displaying those questions as we need them. So what do we say? Well, what we do here is we say, okay, when we receive start the quiz, what we need to do is we need to select a question. So how do we select a question? Well, there are at the moment there are 3 possible questions. And if you look here, there are 3 items in the correct answers list. So the correct answers list is 3 items long. So what we can say is, okay, we need to pick a random number from 1 to the correct answer, the length of the correct answers, and we're going to create a variable and call it chosen question. Call it chosen question, good stuff. And we'll set chosen question to a random number from 1 to the length of correct answers. So let's have a look. If we double click on this now, we can see here over here that it's actually doing that. Each time it's picking a random one. So what we could do is set the chosen question to a random number of the correct answers. Then what we can do, here's the clever thing, is we'll switch the backdrop to whatever the chosen question is. So now, if we click that there, oh, that needs to go here, doesn't it, on that one? There you go, chosen question 3, it's switched to there. Ah, you see, now there's a slight problem now. It is changing the backdrop, but it's not changing the backdrop to the correct one. And the reason is because I want it to go to this 1, 2, and 3 here and check it from there. But actually what it's doing is it's just going from its order here, 1, 2, 3. So what have we got to do? Well, all we need to make sure we do is whenever we add questions, there's 1, 2, and 3, make sure our questions here are at the top. And any other backgrounds, such as a start screen or a game over screen, or as you're going to see in a minute, the correct or wrong answer screen, they've got to go at the bottom here so that they don't interfere with this order. So let's have a look now. If we press start, let's have a look, click start. It switched through to a different backdrop and it's changed the chosen question to 2. Let's try that again. Let's make sure it's working. There you go. And it switched to question 1 and the chosen question is 1. Notice how I'm just sort of leaving this up at the moment until I'm quite happy that it's working. But that seems to be working fine. So it chooses the question. There we go. Switches the backdrop to the chosen question. Now what we need to do is we need to display 3 more buttons for A, B, and C, and then check to see if the user has clicked on the right button. So what have we got to do? Well, let's go to our start button here and let's duplicate that. Let's get rid of these. And oops, I just got rid of the wrong one. There we are. And on our start button here, let's change that from start to A, because that's going to be the one for A. Let's move him there. Brilliant, good. And what we'll do here is we'll say, okay, at the start of the game, we don't want him to show, so we'll hide him. But let's have a look. When I receive, let's just do ask a question. If I would do answer question. When I receive answer question, will show, because we want to be able to answer the questions. There we go. So at the start of the game, that A button is going to hide, but when I receive answer question, it's going to show. Of course, we have to say answer question, which would be here, switch to the right backdrop, and now we display broadcast answer the question. So we're going to start the quiz, choose the correct one. Once it's done that, switch the backdrop to the right one, and then broadcast answer question, which will display the A button. Good. And now what we say is, okay, when this sprite is clicked, we need to say that, okay, if this sprite is clicked, the answer they've given, the user's answer, is A. So in order to do that, we make a variable and call this user's answer, and we'll set, when this sprite is clicked, set the user's answer to A. Good. There we go. We'll duplicate that now, and we'll do the same thing for B and C. So we'll change that to B and change their answer to B. Change that to C and change their answer to C. Good. So hopefully now, let's have a look, start the game. Let's just move that down. If we click start, there we go. It displays the A, B and C. Obviously these are, the sizes aren't great, which we need to fix. Let's just make those a bit smaller. A's are not the right size. B's are not the right size. That's better. Good. So, and if we look here, the user's answer is B. If we click B, it does B, A, C. There we go. So we're almost there. But now what we need to say is, okay, we broadcast answer the question. Now what we need to do is wait until they've answered the question. Well, how do we know if they've answered the question? Well, here's the easiest way to do it. Here, set the user's, above there, set the user's answer to an empty string. And that's really important. It's got to delete that. It's got to be nothing long, 0 in length. And what we do now is we use a clever little thing. We say, okay, wait until the length of the user's answer is greater than 0. So wait until the length of the user's answer is greater than 0. And then what we do is we broadcast question answered. Broadcast question answered. And when we broadcast question answered, we need to hide these buttons until the next question is ready. So when the question is answered, just hide. And let's drag that onto there. Just drag that onto there. So now, hopefully, what will happen is, let's press start. Notice here the user's answer is empty before I answer the question. And if I click on one of them, there you go. It deletes the, it doesn't delete, it hides the buttons, and it set the user's answer to A. So we're getting a lot closer. So broadcast question answered, which is good. Now what we need to do is work out whether they've got the right or wrong answer. Well, that actually, because we've got this list here and we found out what the chosen question is and we've got the user's answer, it's actually quite easy, because all we have to do now is say, okay, let's do an if else. If we just check to see if the A is equal to whatever is at item 1 of the correct answers list. So if the user's answer is equal to item, not 1 of correct answers, but it will be whatever the chosen question is. So if the user's answer is the same, is equal to item, whatever the chosen answer is, or the correct answers, then we need to, what do we need to do? Oh, we need to change the backdrop to, let's create a new backdrop, and let's call this correct. Put correct on there. Oh, making the same mistake as before. Connector mode, thank you. Correct. Let's do that in purple. There we go. So there's the correct one. Again, click correct. Again, make sure it appears below your actual question list here for your actual questions. Good, correct. Let's just move that to the middle. Oops. Don't know why that's not working. It's having a bad day today, isn't it? There we go. Good, so we correct. In fact, while we're here, actually, that might as well do one that says wrong. That one's called correct. This one is called wrong. And let's change that to wrong. There we go. So if the user's answer is the same as the chosen, the correct answer, then what we do here is we change the backdrop to correct. And we add one to their score. Well, we haven't got a score, so we need to create a variable and call it score. Let's put here, at the start of the game, the score needs to be set to 0. There, switch it back to correct, change the score by 1. Otherwise, we just switch the backdrop to wrong. Then what we do is we wait for a second. Just wait for a second to display it, and then we'll move on to the next question. Well, how do we move on to the next question? Well, the easiest way to do it is just to use the repeat. And this bit is the bit that all needs to be repeated there. So hopefully, when you start the quiz 3 times, it will go through, it will ask choose a question, check it's the answer, etc., etc. And then at the end of the quiz, we can say how much they got. So let's look start. Let's try that. We'll leave those there for the moment, just see how things are going. Start, what is the capital of France? Paris. Correct. And the score is 1. Good stuff. Capital of England, Birmingham. Wrong. Score still 1. What's the capital of... now here you go. Notice here now, correct. If you see that, what's happening now is, because each time it's just picking a random question, there is a possibility that you could get the same question twice. It's capital of Ireland, which of course is no good. We don't want it to ask the same question twice. We want it to pick out of that list of question banks, but we don't want to pick the same question twice. So how are we going to check that each time round we aren't picking the same answer again? Well, what we need is another list of questions. This one is the questions asked. Oh, questions asked. There we go. So there's a list of questions that have already been asked. And as you can see, and we're going to put the question numbers in there. And what we do here is you say, okay, at the start of the game, let's delete everything from questions asked. And here, let's have a look. After they've chosen the question, we need to add their chosen question to the questions asked, which will ask that list. And now here is the clever bit. What we say here is you say, okay, repeat until the chosen question is not in. So in, not. Repeat until the chosen question, which will be the number, is not in the questions already asked list. Oh, no, that way around. And it's this bit. Just like that. So what happens is here, it gets stuck in a little loop here. So it will keep changing the chosen question until it finds a chosen question that's not already been chosen. At that point, it'll break out of this mini loop and then it'll start going down here and it will start doing the rest of it. So let's just try that now. Start of the game, these are the questions asked. Let's make sure it adds it to there. When we press start, there you go. So it's already said, okay, we've picked the second question already. So let's go, capital of England is London. Good. There you go. And now it's added a different question. Ireland, Dublin. Good. And capital of France, Paris. Good. So you can see here, I mean, you could try for yourself. You can see that it keeps on, it keeps on asking until, it keeps on changing the question until it gets the right one. So there we go. In fact, actually what we can do now is here where we got repeat 3, you could change that to any number actually. In fact, no, we'll leave that for the moment. You could change that manually. So we've got most of the game sorted now. Let's just remove that. All we've got to do now is we need to do it at the end so that Scratch pops up at the very end and he says what your score is. So let's duplicate this. Oh, duplicate. And let's put the end. The end. Move him over to the left a bit. Yeah, there we go. The end. So what we could say here is after these 3 repeated, or 10, or however many times you're going to ask the question, here at the very end, what we do is we switch the backdrop to oh, it's called correct 2, but that's not right, is it? If we look at this backdrop, that's the game over screen, isn't it? Game over screen. Game over screen. So after we've done the 3 repeats, switch the backdrop to the game over screen, and then we broadcast game over. Game over. Broadcast game over. And here, this sprite, at the start of the game, he hides. When I receive game over, we show, and we just get to say you scored and then his score. Out of 3, and you can change that to whichever one you want to do. So hopefully now let's have a go. Scratch quiz game. Let's do it nice and big. There you go. Start. What is the capital of France? Paris. Correct. What is the capital of England? Let's go Birmingham. Wrong. What is the capital of Ireland? Dublin. Correct. You scored 2. There you go. I'll just move the cat down a bit because he's a bit high up. There we go. So there's a nice, easy way of making a quiz game. Improvements to your quiz. I would add a lot more questions. I'd certainly add 10 questions as a minimum. You probably want between about 20 and 50 questions in total. Make sure for each question you just add each of your correct answers as you go through, and make sure that all your questions appear at the top. So 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3. That's probably the biggest way you can go wrong. So first improvements, add some more questions. You probably want to add some sound effects when you get the answer right, or some sound effects when you get the answer wrong. Add some music, that would be a good idea. You could also add a difficulty selector, like easy, medium, hard. If it's easy, it only asks 3 questions. If it's medium, it asks 5. If it's hard, it asks 10 questions. You could also have a pass or fail system, so that if they get over 7 out of 10, you get an award. Or if you get 2 out of 10, then you get fail. So there's quite a lot of things you can do to add. But that's a nice, easy way of doing a multiple choice quiz that works quite well. There you go. If you liked the tutorial, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you've got any requests for any games or any tutorials you want, just drop a comment in the bottom of the video. Thank you very much, and have fun scratching.